Welcome to the deep dive. We are diving deep into information again to pull out those essential insights for you.
That's right.
We're continuing our journey through the Manual of Patent Examining Procedure, the MPEP.
hmm And this is all part of our series, giving you these section-by-section looks. Today, we're hitting Chapter 2100,
Patentability.
a big one, absolutely fundamental. It lays out, the basic requirements under U.S. law for an invention to even get considered for a patent.
And within Chapter 2100, we're zooming right in on Section 2182.
Exactly. Section 2182, it's titled Search and Identification of the Prior Art.
Okay.
And it's really, really critical. It tells examiners how they should figure out if something in the prior art, something already known, actually matches what's being claimed in a patent application.
Especially for certain types of claims.
Yes, especially for these claims written in what's called means plus function or step plus function format.
Yeah.
That falls under 35 U.S.C. 112. So our mission, really, for this deep dive is to understand how examiners are supposed to apply prior art when they encounter these functional claim elements.
Okay, let's unpack that. We've got the manual section here talking about the process, applying prior art, interpreting claims. We want to find the core ideas and, what it actually means for you listening, whether you're an applicant or an examiner.
Let's do it.
So maybe start us off. What exactly are these means plus function or step plus function claims? Why are they, different?
Sure. So think about how most claims work. They usually describe a thing, a structure, right? Like a metal clamp with two arms.
Or an action, like a step of heating the mixture to 100 degrees.
Exactly. But these functional claims, they define an element by its job, its purpose, its function, instead of spelling out the specific structure or act. You'll see phrases like means for fastening or step for filtering the liquid. The focus is purely on what it does.
Ah, okay, I see. So instead of claiming a specific type of clamp, you might claim a means for securing a lid. That sounds efficient, maybe flexible, but I can see the problem straight away. Prior art usually shows me pictures of actual clamps or describes specific filtering steps. How do you compare a functional phrase like means for securing to a concrete structure someone else already invented?
That is exactly the challenge, and it's what Section 2182 is designed to address. It sets out the rules of engagement, you could say, for applying prior art to these functional limitations.
Okay, so what are the rules?
Well, here's a really key point.
Yeah.
Section 2182 makes very clear. Let's say the examiner finds some prior art, maybe an old patent or publication, and that prior art reference only describes the function. It talks about securing a lid, matching your means for securing a lid claim, but maybe doesn't show the exact same device you described.
Okay, so it does the same job.
Right. If it only teaches the function, the burden of proof actually shifts.
Shifts. Shifts to who?
To the examiner. It's not enough for the examiner to just say, hey, this whole patent does the same thing.
Right.
The examiner must then show that the structure or the acts disclosed in that prior art reference, the clamp in the old patent, for instance, are the same as or equivalent to the specific structure, material, or acts that you, the applicant, described in your patent specification for performing that function.
Whoa, okay, hold on. So it's not just about finding prior art that performs the same function. That's step one, maybe?
Kind of, yeah.
But the examiner then has to dig into the applicant's own patent application, find where the applicant described the structure for doing that function,
Yes.
and then prove the prior art structure is the same or equivalent to that specific description.
Exactly right. The comparison isn't just function to function in the abstract. It's a direct comparison. Prior art structure versus the structure disclosed in the applicant's specification for that function. It's a crucial distinction.
That seems like a pretty high bar for the examiner.
It can be. It puts the focus squarely on what the applicant actually disclosed.
Okay, so what about the other way around?
What do you mean?
What if the prior art shows the exact same structure the applicant described in their specification? The same kind of clamp. But the prior art document is totally silent about using it to secure a lid. It doesn't mention the function.
Ah, interesting scenario. Does the structure automatically perform the function?
Yeah, can the examiner just assume it does?
Not quite automatically. The MPEP says a presumption might arise that the structure inherently performs the claimed function.
Might?
Yes, but, and this is important, the examiner needs to have a sound basis for believing it's true. They can't just leap to that conclusion without some reasoning or evidence suggesting that structure would naturally perform that function.
So no wild guesses. There needs to be some logic behind it.
Exactly. And this whole framework really hammers home how incredibly important the patent specification itself is when you're dealing with these means plus function claims.
The description the applicant writes.
Right. The courts have said time and again that you must interpret these claims based on the corresponding structure that the applicant actually disclosed in their specification.
This sounds like the kind of thing courts would have opinions on. Do we have case law examples?
We certainly do. The sources mention a key Federal Circuit case that's the main appeals court for patent law. It's Go Light Inc., Vu Walmart Stores Inc.
Go Light. Okay. What do they say?
They laid out a clear two-step process for analyzing these means plus function claims.
Okay, step one.
First, you figure out the specific function that's actually recited in the claim language. Seems straightforward enough.
Makes sense. Identify the job. And step two.
Step two is the critical link. You have to identify the corresponding structure, material, or acts that are disclosed in the specification, the applicant's description, as performing that specific function.
So you absolutely have to go back to the applicant specification document and find the part, the structure, the thing that the inventor explicitly linked to that functional claim language.
Precisely. And that link needs to be clear. The specification has to clearly associate the structure with the function.
What if it doesn't? What if it describes a structure and separately describes a function but doesn't, connect the dots?
Then you have a problem. If there isn't that clear association, the prior art might not actually meet that claim limitation, even if the prior art shows a structure that could perform the function.
Wow.
Yeah, the source mentions another case, B. Braun Medical Inc. v. Abbott Labs. In that case, the court actually rejected an argument that a certain structure corresponded to a claimed function because the specification just didn't clearly link the two.
So the link itself is vital.
It is. And there's another case mentioned, Medical Instrumentation and Diagnostic Corps v. Electa AB. This one reinforces the idea that even if someone skilled in the field, an expert, could figure out how to make something perform the function.
Like they could write the software for it.
Right, like writing software for a claimed conversion step. That capability isn't enough if the specification doesn't clearly disclose and associate a specific structure, like the actual software algorithm or code, with that function. The specification is your dictionary, defining what structure corresponds to your functional term.
Okay, this is starting to really crystallize. So let's bring it back to the practical side for our listeners. What does this mean for you? If you're an applicant writing a patent and you decide to use this means plus function language, this is a huge flashing warning sign, right? You absolutely must make sure your specification, your description, clearly identifies and links the specific structures or materials or acts that perform the functions you're claiming.
Don't be vague.
Right. Don't just list parts and list functions separately. You've got to draw the line connecting them explicitly and make that connection undeniable in your writing.
Could have said it better.
Yeah.
On the flip side, if you're an examiner reviewing an application with these claims,
Yeah.
your prior art search and analysis has to be really targeted. You're not just scanning for prior art that achieves the same result or performs the same function broadly.
You have to compare it to.
You have to compare the structure in the prior art directly against the specific structure the applicant disclosed in their specification as the means for that function. It really requires a careful reading of the applicant's disclosure to see if the prior art truly shows the same or equivalent means.
Okay. This deep dive into 2182 really highlights it, doesn't it? How the precise words in the claims and the detail, and crucially, the linkages in the specification are absolutely make or break.
Especially for these functional claims.
Yeah. The interpretation isn't just about does prior art achieve the same goal. It's about does prior art achieve it using the same means that the applicant specifically described.
Exactly. Understanding that connection, the functional claim, the specific disclosure requirement in the specification, and how prior art must map onto that specific disclosure is just fundamental if you want to navigate the patent system effectively.
It really is.
Yeah.
You know, this brings up a fascinating question, though. We keep saying the specification needs to clearly link the structure, and it needs to be specific. But how detailed does that description of the structure actually need to be?
That's a good point.
Like, is just naming it enough? Do you need blueprints? How much detail satisfies that requirement, especially when you know it's going to be compared against prior art? Definitely something to mull over when you're drafting or examining.
Absolutely. A crucial consideration.
Okay, before we wrap up, we definitely want to give a special thanks to Mike Shepard. He's the creative director who organized this entire series, helping bring these detailed MPEP sections to you in this audio format.
Yes, thanks, Mike. And just a necessary reminder for everyone, this summary of the MPEP, it was generated using AI tools, things like ChatGPT and NotebookLM,
Right.
so it might contain errors or omissions. It's really for general educational and informational purposes only.
Mhm.
This is not legal advice, definitely not a substitute for formal instruction.
Always, always go to the source.
Exactly. For the authoritative guidance, consult the official MPEP itself, talk to a qualified instructor, or get advice from a registered patent practitioner.
Great advice. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Section 2182. We hope it gave you some valuable insights.